Welcome back to the deep dive. We're doing something a little bit unusual today.
A little bit, yeah.
Typically, when we look at the history of a big organization, we're looking at a biography. You know, the drill, the garage startup, the maxed out credit cards.
The hero's journey.
The hero's journey, exactly. But the documents we have today, this doesn't feel like a story. It feels more like an architectural review.
It is an architectural review. That's really the only way to read this. We are looking at the creation story of the Mogul Madam experience, TMME.
Right.
But I want to be really clear right up front. This isn't some mystical origin story. It's not a legend. It is a systems briefing.
A systems briefing.
Exactly. It's a linear, almost forensic account of how authority gets earned piece by piece. We're watching how a personal mission evolves into a governed structural system.
It's about building a house that doesn't collapse on top of you.
Which is a risk we don't talk about nearly enough.
No, we just talk about the hustle. But looking at this outline, we have 12 distinct phases. And what's interesting, the source material doesn't call them chapters. It treats them like eras.
That's a good way to put it. Each one is an era where a specific problem was hit, a realization was made, and then a law was locked into the system.
So it's like a constitution being written in real time.
That's it. And before we even get to phase one, we have to look at the preamble, the definition of the core concept here, which is MagniPHicense.
Okay, now let's be honest. That sounds like a made-up marketing term.
It does. It absolutely does, until you read the definition. I'm going to read this verbatim because it really sets the stage for everything else.
Okay.
MagniPHicense is not success, not wealth, not visibility. It is the state achieved when lived experience, ethical intelligence, and structural power finally align without erasing the self that earned them.
Without erasing the self. That's the kicker, isn't it?
It's everything, because usually, by the time you get the power, you're a completely different person.
And not always a better one.
Right. So this whole story, it isn't about ambition. It's about alignment under pressure.
So let's walk through it. Let's go back to the beginning. Phase one is called the seed. The entity here is Invested. This looks like a financial literacy program.
It was, but the question is why it started. Most businesses start with someone spotting an opportunity, to make money. This didn't.
Sure.
This started because of information asymmetry. The founder was seeing people in her community being actively punished by financial systems they just didn't understand.
So it wasn't, I want to be a mogul.
It was, I need to stop the bleeding.
It was defense.
Pure and simple. The realization was that financial literacy isn't some soft skill or a hobby. It's a form of resistance. If you don't know how the money works, you're vulnerable.
It's the difference between playing the game and getting played by the game.
Exactly. And that locked in the very first law of the system. People deserve to understand the systems that govern their lives.
Okay, so that's the foundation, the protector. But then the timeline shifts pretty hard. We move into what they call the mirror. This is the era of Herpanache and a mile in HER shoes.
And, this looks like a pivot to fashion and lifestyle. It almost feels like a distraction from the serious finance stuff.
It looks like a distraction on the surface, but it was actually a correction. They found that spreadsheets weren't enough.
How so?
You can give someone all the financial data in the world, the best advice, the perfect budget, but if that person doesn't have the self-concept to actually wield that power, the money just doesn't stick.
It slips right through their fingers.
Or they sabotage it. The realization was numbers are insufficient without embodiment. The founders realized that power without identity fractures the soul.
Wow. So you can't build something heavy on a weak foundation of self-worth.
You can't. So the fashion, the panache, that wasn't vanity.
Yeah. No, it was viewed as sovereignty, as data. The idea is that your worth isn't something a bank grants you in a loan approval. It is something you wear, something you embody before you even walk in the room.
Right. If you don't believe you deserve the seat at the table, you'll probably flip the table over.
Precisely. And that gave us the second law. Power without identity fractures the soul.
Okay, moving on. We've got defense, we've got identity. Now we hit the system. This is the mortgage protection help desk. We're back to the unsexy bureaucratic stuff.
We are, and this is where the disillusionment starts to set in.
Disillusionment.
Yes, because proximity to institutional finance revealed a really dangerous lie. We're all taught that if you have the insurance policy, if you sign the papers, if you tick the compliance boxes, you're safe.
Right, I'm covered.
But the realization in this phase was that being covered is not the same thing as being safe. There is a massive gap between legal adequacy, what the contract says, and your actual lived security. You can be fully compliant and still be completely wiped out by a loophole.
That's terrifying. It's like having a security system that's just turned off.
It's worse. It's like a security system that only protects the bank, not you. And so the system realized that protection has to be structural. It has to be built into the deal itself, not just the paperwork.
Which brings us to the third law.
Protection must be structural, not symbolic. The archetype here is the system walker. You have to know how to walk through the bureaucracy.
Okay, so now they're smart, they're protected, they're embodied. And then, bam, we hit the engine, agency impulse, the minutes for leads era. This just sounds fast.
This is the silicon injection, automation, velocity, scale. This is where you take that intention, you put it on a rocket.
But the problem with rockets
is they go exactly where you point them, even if you point them at a wall or a cliff. The realization here was that speed without alignment is incredibly dangerous.
How so?
Systems, algorithms, funnels, automated emails, they're amoral, they don't have ethics, they're just multipliers. So if your intent is slightly off or your ethics are a little shaky,
the system will multiply that flaw by 1,000,000.
And cause incredible damage. This is where the founder realized that scale without ethics is violence in motion.
Violence in motion. I mean, that is a harsh condemnation of the whole move fast and break things culture.
It rejects it entirely. You can't move fast if you're breaking people. That is the fourth law.
And this seems to trigger a hard stop in the timeline. The next phase is just called the line. We're looking at Ollie and Allie, which is about child safety and tech. This doesn't seem like a business pivot.
It's not. It's a moral boundary. And in systems architecture, boundaries are just as important as bridges.
Okay.
The realization here is very simple. Innocence is non-negotiable. If you build a system that cannot protect the most vulnerable, specifically children, it has no right to exist.
It doesn't matter how profitable it is.
Zero relevance. If it harms the innocent, it is a failed architecture. So the fifth law is absolute. Do not harm is not a value, it is a gate.
A gate. Meaning you don't get past this point if you can't clear it.
Correct. You don't get to balance harm against profit. It's a binary state.
After that hard stop, we enter what looks like maybe the most painful part of this whole review, the stress test. The entity is Science International.
Science. A play on science and, the sigh of exhaustion.
Right.
This phase had everything going for it on paper. High purpose, deep community, a massive vision.
So what was the problem?
It lacked rails, and it had no enforceable infrastructure, is all heart, no spine. And when you try to support a massive community on just good vibes,
the people holding it up get crushed.
Burnout. Catastrophic burnout. But the documents frame this in a really fascinating way. They don't call it a failure. They call it a diagnostic.
A diagnostic.
It proved that good intentions aren't load-bearing. You cannot build a skyscraper on meaning well.
That is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of mission-driven people. We think if our heart's in the right place, the business will just work.
And this phase proved that physics doesn't care about your heart. It cares about your structure. And that brings us to the sixth law. Good intentions are insufficient without governance.
Okay, so we've hit the bottom, the burnout. Now we start to climb back up. Phase 7, the resolution. This is where we see the Mogul Madam experience. But I'm seeing some terms here I need you to explain. JSON Prime and the Ruach Rails.
Right. This is the big turning point. JSON is a tech term. It's a standard for transmitting data. Ruach is Hebrew for spirit or breath.
So, spirit code.
Sort of. It's the convergence of the spirit and the structure. Yeah. This is the moment the founder realized, I cannot be the one holding this up anymore.
Right, because she burned out in the last phase.
Exactly. The burden of verification, of ethics, of enforcement, it was all on her. The shift here is that the burden moves from the builder to the system.
So the protocol itself starts to carry the weight.
The system remembers the ethics, so the human doesn't have to enforce them every single second.
The Ruach rails are the ethical guardrails that keep the train on the track.
Even if the driver leaves, that's the key. The seventh law. The system must carry the weight, not the woman who built it.
That feels like the moment a job becomes a true organization.
It's the moment it becomes an architecture.
Which brings us to phase 8, the declaration. And the theme is imitated, never duplicated. In business, we usually want to be copied, right? You want a franchise. Why resist that?
Because of the source of the data. The logic is that the system wasn't built in a lab. It was built through those 7 phases of pain we just went through.
Mm.
The founder argues that no two nervous systems pay the same price to learn those lessons. Therefore, no two outcomes can ever be identical.
You can copy the website, you can copy the font, but you can't copy the scar tissue.
Precisely. And if you try to copy the outcome without that cost of entry, you just get a hollow structure. It collapses. So the 8th law states, magnificence is not reached by copying outcomes. It is reached by honoring the intelligence earned along the way.
It's about sovereignty.
It's about authenticity as a structural requirement, not just a buzzword.
Phase 9 then takes that and tries to make it useful for others, the transmission, from story to system.
Right. This is the transition from I did this to here's how this is done. If the wisdom stays trapped in the founder's head, it's a bottleneck.
The founder becomes the guru on the mountain.
Which isn't scalable. And frankly, it's not that helpful. So it has to be codified, turned into rights and rails. It has to be transmissible without the founder needing to be present.
So rigorous education.
Protocol, which gives us the 9th law. Wisdom that cannot be transmitted becomes a bottleneck.
Okay, phase 10. The initiation. Others enter the field. This changes the relationship with the customer, doesn't it?
Completely. In a normal business, you have consumers. You sell them things. Here, the language shifts to initiation.
Initiation.
Participants aren't just consuming a story. They're entering a governed field.
That sounds intense. It implies a threshold you have to step over.
It implies consent, preparedness. You aren't just buying a ticket. You're agreeing to the rules of the architecture. And the 10th law captures this. Initiation replaces inspiration when systems are mature.
Inspiration is cheap.
Inspiration is fleeting. Initiation is structural.
Phase 11. The stewardship. Holding without hoarding. This feels like the founder stepping back even more.
It's the move from builder to custodian. When you build something powerful, the temptation is to hoard it, right? To say, this is mine, I control it.
And that suffocates it.
It rots. Leadership shifts to stewardship. The system is something to be watched over and cared for, not possessed. So the 11th law, power must be stewarded or it will rot.
And finally, phase 12. The legacy. Magnificence in motion.
This is the future state. And notice, it's not an ending, it's not the exit. It's the state where the work continues without that original weight of the founder holding it all up.
It's self-sustaining. The structure stands on its own.
It's alive. The 12th law, and this is the capstone, legacy is achieved when the work outlives the weight.
When the work outlives the weight. That's a profound way to think about what we're all doing. We're all carrying so much weight, just hoping to build something that can eventually carry itself.
That's the goal of architecture, to create a space that stands.
Okay. We've walked the whole path.
Yeah.
But this is a lot of information. I want to do a rapid-fire summary. Just the laws. 1 through 12. Let's hear the whole Constitution.
Let's consolidate the doctrine. 1. People deserve to understand the systems that govern their lives. 2. Power without identity fractures the soul. 3. Protection must be structural, not symbolic. 4. Scale without ethics is violence in motion. 5. Do not harm is not a value, it is a gate. 6. Good intentions are insufficient without governance.
Okay, 7.
7. The system must carry the weight, not the woman who built it. 8. Magnificence is not reached by copying outcomes. It is reached by honoring the intelligence earned along the way.
Almost there.
9. Wisdom that cannot be transmitted becomes a bottleneck. 10. Initiation replaces inspiration when systems are mature. 11. Power must be stewarded or it will rot.
And 12.
And 12. Legacy is achieved when the work outlives the weight.
Hearing them all back to back like that, it's not just a business plan, is it? It's a survival guide.
It's a mechanism for orientation. It takes the chaotic, often painful experience of trying to build something and turns it into a replicable structure.
It really makes you wonder about your own career, your own life. We tend to look at our resume as this list of wins. But what if we did an architectural review? If we looked for the load-bearing walls, the stress tests, the gates, would our structure actually hold up?
Or are we all just one bad day away from a collapse because we never built the rails? That's the question.
That is the question. We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for diving in with us.
Magnificence in motion. This was not invented. It was arrived at.